All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Unlicensed. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Jill. I'm the host of Unlicensed, and this is a podcast where real women write in anonymously about literally anything they want, from dating and relationships to career advice to self-esteem, imposter syndrome, woo-woo shit. We literally cover everything here. And as you guys know, I'm someone who doesn't know what the hell I'm doing with my life. So I have different female guests joining me each week: relationship coaches, therapists, friends, family, and social media influencers. Guys, I am so excited for today's episode. We have Shae Chisman joining us. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist helping marginalized and minority people navigate the challenges of their society, which society places on them, whether that be difficulty with family or community dynamics, healing from past traumas, really just empowering these people too. She also has an amazing social media presence. We have literally been chatting for like the last 20 minutes nonstop. So I'm afraid that we're going to go over this episode by like 2 hours, but welcome, Shae. I'm so excited to have you
Jill.
here.
I'm so excited to be here. I love your content. I love your platform. I love this podcast. I love the idea that I love the name too.
Oh,
like,
thank you.
So great, because really, like, this licensure thing, I love that it gives me the clout to be able to talk about these things.
Yes.
But there are so many people in so many different fields that, like, their voices and perspectives and expertise deserve to be heard. It just so happens I am licensed.
Yes.
So I'm happy to bring my expertise as well.
That's like literally going to be my new tagline that you just said. Okay, no, moving forward. Thank you for the kind words. That means a lot. I literally came up with the name. It felt like it came to me all of a sudden, just for the same reason that you said. I felt like I had a lot of ideas, but also bringing in people like you that obviously have the expertise in whatever field. Also having friends on that just like have life experience similar to that too. So really excited. We're going to hop into the episode. As always, we like to get to know the guests a little bit more. So we're going to get to know you and ask some questions, and then we'll get into the episode of the day, which you guys will find out what we're talking about in a little bit. But my first question for you is, you've spoken a lot about being a mixed, indigenous, queer, cis woman. This has really played a role into the work that you do. So let's talk about your background a little bit more and how that's helped you with the people that you're working through and with on the day-to-day basis.
Oh, that's a really good question. I like to really think of myself and the intersection of my identities like has really primed me to be a bridge builder. Growing up, I was raised with my white mom, and my indigenous dad wasn't around as much, and he wasn't connected to our culture. But my mom was such a proponent of introducing me to my culture. She would take me to the reservation and make sure I went to powwows and community events, and like expose me to this part of me, even though like the person in my life that could have done that just wasn't available to do that. So that was like the first part. And then my mom was a single mom, and the way that she raised me, her closest friends were queer people and brown people. And so they were my gunkles and my uncles and my aunts. And I was truly raised by a village. Like I was raised by all of these different people who weren't biologically related to me, but were so important in my life and gave me just this beautiful experience of being able to encounter different lifestyles, of different heritages, different cultures, and just exposed me to so much. She moved from Murphy, North Carolina, which is like an Appalachian town in North Carolina, to Atlanta. We lived in Conyers, which is about 20 minutes east of here. And we were in Atlanta all the time. And so I just felt like I was raised with all of this culture. Even the church that she raised me in was multicultural, multi-denominational. So I was just always exposed to a lot of diversity. And I saw like mirrors of myself in all of these different people I encountered. So I didn't even realize I was queer, believe it or not, until much later. I probably in college, I kind of had my awakening and my coming out experience. And it's just such a deep, but both my heritage, my identity as a queer woman, and the friendships and the community I've made over the years has just shaped me into who I am. And I'm all about building bridges and bringing people together and helping people heal from the separateness.
A bridge builder. That's such a beautiful way of describing it. And it's so amazing to hear how your mom, as this white woman, was allowing you to see all of these different parts of your identity and your culture. Because I hear these stories from a lot of mixed individuals, especially in single parent homes where they might be raised by a white parent, that they're like, I didn't get to see that other side at all.
Exactly.
So I'm so glad that she did her due diligence on that end so that you were able to see all of that. With you coming out later in life too, what was that experience like for you? Were you someone that, especially being raised by this community of queer people, that you were just like, okay, I feel comfortable coming out? Was it something that you're like, I'm not ready to come out to people? What did that look like when you discovered that in college?
Yeah, I think it was a really unique experience for me. Because I just felt super comfortable.
Good.
Like I knew the people that didn't get it, like I wasn't super close to anyways.
Yeah,
I didn't feel safe with them anyways.
Yeah,
exactly. So it was almost like one of those things where everybody was like, yeah, we figured.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And a part of that is like, oh man, like I wish there would have been some sort of surprise or something. But no, not at all. And yeah, it was just a really beautiful experience. And I was going to Pride here in Atlanta before I came out. And it just didn't feel like that much of a shift for me. Other than just being like, oh yeah, like this part of me makes sense now.
Yeah.
So I ended up in a heteronormative relationship with an amazing cis het man, who loves that part of me and celebrates that part of me. And I don't feel like I have to hide it or tone it down or anything like that.
Yeah, the true acceptance from your partner in that way is so important too. I'm also really interested to hear about the work that you do in your identity with taking these courses and classes and be in the South. I know you got your BS in psychology from Georgia State.
Yeah.
Then you did online school, but you did a residency for a year in Dallas, Texas, right? So how did the South maybe influence any of your own identity and then helping these people too? Because obviously we know like Southern roots and tides, there's a lot of homophobia here, racism. Again, the opposite of everything that you're preaching and teaching and helping people with on the day-to-day basis. So I'm interested to hear how the South has maybe played a role in your life too and everything that you've been doing.
Yeah. Well, I think being raised by a mom who was like just breaking socio-cultural norms. Like I remember when we moved from Murphy to Atlanta with my gunkles, like so many of my extended family members talking so much shit and being like, oh my gosh, you're raising that young girl in Atlanta, like with these gay men. And like, and my mom just didn't give a fuck. She did not.
She's like, and I am.
Yeah, watch me. And so like I really learned a lot from her to step into who I am and what I do with boldness and not make any apologies about it. Like,
I love that.
she was such and continues to be, and she's a therapist now as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wait, that's so cool.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. My sister's in her internship to be a therapist.
Oh, y'all are all just amazing people helping people.
We're all therapists, and yes, it's a slay. So yeah, I think that she really modeled that for me, and so I never really felt a whole lot of shame about that. I have so many memories of like me being in like third grade, and I remember it was an election with like Bush and maybe John. Who was it? Somebody else. Democrat, and we were having these discussions in third grade about like abortion rights.
Yeah.
And this little boy was like,
This 8-year-old.
do you really support someone killing a baby? And I'm like, it's not a baby, it's a fetus. And like, people are going to have abortions, whether they're legal or not. And they're going to be in danger if they go do it illegally. Like they could die. And I was in third grade.
Put her on the podium.
Yeah. I just didn't know anything different. Like me and my mom talked about these things. My chosen family, we talked about these things. And so I definitely had experiences, even though I was super white presenting, like feeling like a minority and feeling very much alone in who I was. And so I would try to find my people. I'd just be loud so my people could find me and hear me.
Yes.
So that was a big part of like how it influenced me. And then that just... Well, to get into the trauma, one of my uncles contracted HIV/AIDS when I was in high school, and we didn't know. And I don't think he got tested. He didn't tell anyone. Yeah. And he got sick with pneumonia and slipped into a coma. And what prevented him from getting the help that he needed, because at that time we had really good medication where he could have lived a long, full life, but he was raised in the same area that my mom was, and it was deeply homophobic, racist, all the things. And he just didn't want, and that was the narrative. If you're gay, you get HIV and you die. And he didn't want to be part of that story. And I think he just avoided it. And when that happened and he died, it was deeply traumatizing to me. It was very hard. I still grieve it. This is the time of year he got sick. So my body keeps score of it every year.
Of course.
But I like made a decision that like, I'm going to do everything in my power to work with people so that they don't fall into this same trap, that they can be proud of who they are. They can get the help, seek the help that they need to heal their trauma, to, make healthy choices for themselves. And even if it means living a long gay life out of spite. Like, I'm going to show these people, like, this is not going to be my story, right?
Yeah.
So that's really what fueled me to want to be a therapist, to create safe and brave spaces for queer people, for people of color, for all disenfranchised, oppressed people to just like share their story, heal from the trauma that colonial and oppressive systems create.
Thank you so much for sharing about your uncle too. That story is so heartbreaking in the sense that you just said it perfectly. Like there were things around in the medical technology around that he could have lived longer, but because of homophobia, those narratives, unfortunately, just the society, and we were talking about that in the car earlier, and how society is so structured in that way, didn't give him that opportunity to do that. And I'm so thankful that you've had like such an amazing family that's been so supportive of you and him and each other. But you keep mentioning, and I had to ask you about this too, chosen family. Really want to dive into the importance of this concept of a chosen family, because I think there's so many people that we joke all the time, you cannot choose your family. I love my family. My family's got some issues though. And then I feel like I really relate more and resonate more, connect more with my friends who, some of them do feel like my sisters, my cousins, like y'all are family. You're going to be there for life. Literally my sister cousins, literally. So let's talk about the importance of chosen family and just giving the people listening in, like, what is that actually for them? If it's something that they may even have in their life, but they're not necessarily sure of like the term behind it too. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Chosen family is so powerful. And it's almost hard for me to like really break it down because it's just so like, again, as you've heard, like part of my story, but it's this idea that like, I think that we place too much emphasis on biological family to meet all of our needs. It's not always possible. It's not even like, sometimes families are low-key choosing to not show up for you in the ways that you deserve. Sometimes they're just not capable because of the generational trauma. Because generational trauma has been passed down and passed down, and it's just and the systems of oppression keep them from being able and available to give you what you need. So like sometimes we can place a lot of blame and be like, fuck your family, they suck. And sometimes we can have a balance of empathy too, that like they just weren't capable of giving you what you need, and that doesn't mean that you're not lovable.
They didn't get that, so they can't give that to you, but that doesn't mean that they don't love you.
That's not your fault.
That they're not able to. That's
so
a really good point.
let's share the responsibility. Let's get lots of really trustworthy people in your life that you can lean on for different things. You know, you have, a chosen uncle you go to who's like, hey, my car's acting weird. I need you to
You're my mechanic.
I need you to check that check engine light and tell me what code's getting pulled up. You have a sister cousin you go to vent to, and she's so good at validating you and not trying to fix your problems. You got a chosen mama who's going to smack you upside the head when you not acting right, but
when
give you a big love.
We're acting a fool out here.
And make you a good meal afterwards, right? So it's being intentional, but I think the first part is asking yourself, like, what do I need? What's missing? What type of support, or what does the support look like that I need? And then I think the first step of finding your chosen family is going to the places where you think they'd be. Are they at the drag shows? Are they at the coffee shop? Are they at the yoga studio? Are they at the park walking dog? And being intentional about, I'm going to go to these places because they're not going to find you on your couch.
Damn. Or that place that you're saying you need support for your mental health, but maybe not the person in the bar is going to help with that.
Right.
Such a good point. Who was the first person from your experience that you remember being like, that was the first person that I chose to be my family in that sense? I don't know if that goes back to like you being a child or like college or whenever, maybe that was you coming out in school and you were like, okay, my family lives a little further away. I need someone close to me that I can talk to about these experiences. Who's that first person that you remember being like, they're my family now, even though we're not biologically related?
Yeah. I think it would be easy for me to say my gunkles, but I'm sure my soul chose them. Like, I'm sure that there was a part of me that chose them, because I could have been like, Mom, those are your friends. They ain't mine. But I would say my gunkles, they were just there for me and brushed my hair and braided it when my mom was at work and made me Fruity Pebbles in the morning and watched Lion King with me over and over and over and over and over again.
Love that movie also.
Cry
so great. Every freaking time.
So great. My 5-year-old has not watched it yet because I'm like, the Mufasa scene, he's not ready for that.
No,
he's not ready.
I'm not ready for that.
I wasn't ready for that.
28 and I'm still not
but
ready.
I watched it a million times. But yeah, I think they were really. And then as I grew, like in high school, I had several friends I'm really lucky to still be very close with that became chosen family. And a lot of it, the reason they became chosen family was because they needed my biological and chosen family too. Like they magnetized towards me because of who I was. And then they would come over and hang out and be like, oh, your family's so safe. Like they're so cool. They're so chill. Like, you know, they call my mom and dad, and the gunkles. And so I think some of those people I chose because I was like, you need what we got. Like you need a safe space to land. Yeah. And they still are that.
And then they became a part of your family, even though they were choosing you first. I never thought about that like that. That's really cool, actually.
So it was a real honor to get to be that kind of person to people and to like have family that was that to them. And I just continue to collect them over the years. There's Jake Ryan. He's on Instagram. He's a therapist living in New York City right now. And I met him in my grad program. And we immediately, like, even though I was doing virtual, we'd like see each other's discussion posts and be like, oh yeah. Like,
we're clicking.
You passed the vibe check.
That's cousin right there.
Yeah, exactly. And then we met in person at our residency and immediately bonded. And he's like coming down for Christmas next week. And,
y'all are like this.
Oh, we're besties.
Love.
Yeah, we drive my partner crazy quoting Beyonce. Like we
He's
make
like,
it a
it's
challenge.
Time for them to go.
Home. He loves him, but the Beyonce quoting gets a little insane. We just challenge ourselves to come up with a reply that's like a Beyonce lyric.
No,
every
which
time.
is like, and we can easily do that. We got to do it like at least 3 times during our interview today. No, you explained that so beautifully. And I think the thing that's really going to stick with me is what you said of sometimes your family, they still love you. It doesn't mean they don't like you or they don't love you. Even in that sense, they're just not capable to be there. That reminded me of something I saw on your site of kind of changing the narrative of the beliefs that are in your system. And I know you have some like mindfulness-based interventions, trauma-informed narratives to help with that. How can people begin to go about changing these narratives and these beliefs that they have in their heads? Because I'm someone that has very certain beliefs, and I think most people do that. Sometimes I'm like, this isn't healthy for me. It's not healthy that I say these like cruel things to myself that other people would never even see that side to me.
And you'd never say that to someone else.
And I would never say that to someone else. So how can someone begin to go about changing some of those negative narratives they might have about themselves or just things in their lives too?
Oh, good question. Yeah. I think the first thing is developing an awareness of what it feels like in your body when you're either saying those things to yourself or operating from that belief. So noticing like when your shoulders are like up above your ears, like what did I just think? Like what was that thought just going through my head? Or if your stomach's upset, you're feeling tension somewhere, you're feeling just gross and yucky, being like, I wonder what I was just thinking about. It's this thing in therapy we call tracking. Yeah. So to be able to notice, I don't feel very great. What just happened?
Love that.
Yeah, what just happened? And then being able to kind of follow it back to the narrative that was playing in your head. Because we always have these thoughts going on. It's like an internal script, right? Yeah. And it might be like, okay, I notice I've got like this rumbling in my tummy, and it was because I just sent a risky text and to this person I don't have a connection with anymore, but I'm feeling kind of lonely. And maybe I'm trying to like hustle for my worth. Like maybe if I go the extra mile and send this text, then maybe they'll see that I'm worthy.
That's such a good example.
Like all boils down to this idea that you're not good enough, right? And like who says? Like who says? And sometimes that voice may sound like a family member or a person from your past. Like it may actually have the tone of that person. Yeah. It may be your inner child. It may be like a younger version of you who didn't feel good enough because maybe that you were neurodivergent and nobody noticed and you were struggling in school. Maybe you were queer and no one wanted you to be, and you were getting subtle messages all the time that it was not okay to be gay. Yeah. And being able, I think, especially with the inner child thing, to be your own parent, to be your own source of safety and comfort and be like, oh man, yeah, sometimes we think things like that. Sometimes we think we're not good enough, but the truth is you're awesome just the way you are. You are worthy just the way you are. And the only thing that's making you feel that way is just the way society's set up to keep the people on top on top. And you keep the people on the bottom on the bottom. And guess what? We're going to prove them wrong. Like, I think really doing this internal dialogue with yourself. And sometimes it helps to journal it. Sometimes it helps to like voice record yourself or something like that. But it's this, you know, when I talk about mindfulness, it's not always like sitting in meditation. It's noticing and responding without judgment. That's what mindfulness is.
We sit and we listen. Yes. Yeah. I love that so much. I've seen videos and read some things about like find what that voice sounds like, because a lot of the time it's not
your voice.
You. And I remember someone said that to me and I'm like, no, it is. And then I started thinking about things that I would say to myself that were negative. And I'm like, no, it was this really mean girl from high school or a cousin that was super mean, or like my mom or dad even saying things to me growing up too. I think that's so important to really lean into that and not distract yourself from it or avoid when you start getting that feeling of, okay, shoulders raised, I'm starting to feel a little bit on edge. Sometimes you just want to be like, okay, well, let me just go distract myself because you're so uncomfortable with that feeling. And we'll talk about like sitting in uncomfortable emotions and that discomfort today too. But I think that's a perfect segue to our episode. I'm obsessed with you already.
I'm obsessed with you, Jill.
This is so fun stuff. Okay,
why did they let us come together? They shouldn't have.
They
made a mistake.
They truly did. Guys, I hope you're enjoying today's episode already. I know I am. I am so excited for today's episode. We are talking about unproductivity and productivity guilt. Basically, anytime that you may feel like you need to rest and take time for yourself when you're not busy and on the go, and there's that shame and guilt and that feeling that you're just not good enough, you're not doing enough with your life. I know so many people, especially women, really deal with what we're going through today. So this person wrote in and they said, I'm always on the go between working late, hanging out with friends, keeping up with long distance friendships through FaceTime, and traveling to see my parents in New York from Houston every couple of months. I'm constantly busy. I'm even trying to find my guy on dating apps and picked up some hobbies by joining a book club and a tennis club in my spare time.
Love that.
But when I'm not doing all of this, I feel this intense guilt of being unproductive. Honestly, my self-worth takes a hit when I'm not busy, even though I know my body needs time to rest. I struggle with the idea of just sitting down to binge TV or having a chill day after being out with friends. Instead, I get super anxious and force myself to do more. Is it bad to always be on the go? And how can I shake this guilt when I do slow down? So we'll dive into it and why this person may be feeling this way, and so many questions for you. But my first question for you, because I like to lean into a little more about the guests and their own personal experience, was this. Are you someone who feels like you're more extroverted in the sense that you like to get your energy from other people? So you're always on the go, you're busy, or are you someone who's more introverted? You know, you need that time for yourself, or is it a little bit of mix? I like to hear like where you kind of stand with that. Has that evolved over time? Have you always been the same? What does that look like for you in your own life too?
Great question, Jill. Yeah, I love that you built in the expectation that it can change over time, because that's my experience.
Okay.
I was always a very extroverted person, always. My journey of becoming a parent and therapist happened kind of at the same time. Like, I got pregnant at the end of my grad school program.
Wow.
So I became a parent at the same time I was like out on my own as a therapist.
Got it.
And that vastly changed things for me.
Yes.
My bandwidth got shorter.
Yeah.
The amount of energy I was pouring out to other people was greater than what I was getting back.
Yeah.
And so that's changed for me. I'm way more of an introvert, ambivert, I would say, these days. I have to have a lot of recuperation time after clients, after social stuff, when I'm around people. So it's changed for me for sure. But I still love, it'll never go away that I love connecting with people, whether it be my clients, my friends, you, like random people in the grocery store. Like, I do love connecting with people, but I definitely have to be very intentional about how I recover from that and get my like spoons or my energy back.
100%. Can you tell us in a way how you would be intentional in that way? Does that mean you're just not, if an old friend that you haven't talked to in the last 5 years is like, hey, let's FaceTime every day for the next month, and you're like, okay, I don't really want to do that, and that doesn't feel productive to me in that sense, because I feel like our relationship has changed and I may not necessarily be getting anything out of this conversation that I may have 5 years ago when we had a closer connection. What does that look like for you in terms of being really intentional in that way?
Yeah, I think I have the bravery, and I recognize not everybody does, to be very direct with them and say, like, I value our relationship so much because of where I am in my life that expectation doesn't feel resonant with me. It doesn't feel like that's going to work out, but I would love to catch up with you, and then we can kind of see how it goes from there. If I have time, I'll let you know, like, hey, let's catch up via FaceTime or what have you. But I will honor like the fact that like that person wants to make a connection. Yeah. But I'll also, as a therapist too, I have a boundary and like a sense of discernment up about people wanting me to be their therapist when I'm not their therapist too.
Yeah.
Like I have a very strong boundary about that. And like, I'm a very passionate friend and I show up for my people. 100%. But it's like, Brene Brown talks about vulnerability as a superpower, but only to people who have proven that they're trustworthy to use it as not a weapon against you. And that's it for me. Like I've poured out into so many relationships and people where it wasn't reciprocal that like, I ain't doing that no more. No. Like that is not the vibe anymore. We don't do that here.
Was there a moment where you knew you're like, I'm not doing this anymore? Was it one specific experience, or were you just taking on so many of those relationships that you felt like you weren't getting the same thing out of it? And you're like, okay, I am not your therapist. I know I've got the skills and the expertise to be giving you guys things, but go find someone and actually pay them to do this for you. Because every time I get on the phone, I don't want to be this person for you. What did that look like for you when you knew that moment that you didn't want to be like that for some people? I can't
pinpoint an exact moment, but definitely things are coming up for me. And I think it was kind of accumulation. Okay. And I didn't feel like in the beginning that I think I was getting a lot of my worth.
Got it.
I was getting a lot of my worth from helping people. And then it became my career. And I like unpacked that in my own therapy and my own healing journey that like I'm worthy even when I'm not helping. And so that was a really pivotal moment for me. And it was just like one of those aha moments where I was like, oh yeah, this isn't my only worth. Like I have worth outside of this. And yeah, I think that was it for me. And thankfully, there were friendships where I had to set that boundary and they really responded well to it. They were like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was doing this. Like, thank you for calling me in about this. Like, I'm going to adjust. I'm going to do my work. Like, can you direct me how to find a therapist? And I'm like, yes,
I absolutely can.
I can do that. I can do that. That is what I can do. And so, yeah, I think that's been super helpful. And then I think I have more discernment about picking up on the red flags of when that's happening in a newer relationship and being able to course correct and be able to just gently be like, oh my gosh, like I empathize with that. I'm able to hold space for that. Yeah. Like, here are some resources for you. And like, I'm your friend and I'm not going to be your therapist because I'm going to get pissed. I can't see the forest for the trees. If someone's mistreating you, I'm going to try to go, no, I'm not going to fight them, but like, I'm going to want to go fight them. I'm going to want to go fight them. And as a therapist, that's a different relationship. 100%. So the more I sank into like what my style of being a therapist was, the more I was able to differentiate what does support look like for my friends and what does it look like for my clients. And it's very, very different. Yeah. Like when clients talk about like, gosh, I wish we could just be friends. I'm like, you don't want me to be your friend. Like
that relationship's gonna look a lot differently, girl.
I talk to you more than I talk to my close friends. Like we meet once a week. Yeah. I don't talk to some of my friends once a week. Like I might not text back. Like, and for you, I'm gonna respond to you. And
100%.
I'm gonna like just
this is my job.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want me as a friend.
Don't be trying to get out of this.
Better. And my friends wish that I could treat them like that. So
in the way of that
y'all want what you can't have. But trust me, you got the best deal.
I'm so happy you have those boundaries for yourself. And I love what you said about for so long you felt like your worth was stemming from helping others and people. When it comes to productivity, do you feel like a lot of people feel unproductive when they're not helping others? It kind of stood out to me in this prompt because this person's like, okay, I'm FaceTiming friends. Yes. I'm flying to my parents. Yes. I'm joining these book clubs where I'm like talking with people and putting my ideas out there for other people too. Obviously, that's how a book club would work in that sense too. How often do you feel like people, especially women, may feel like they're being unproductive when they're only doing things for others and not themselves too?
Yeah. Well, I think this has like a lot to do with, I'm thinking about like feminism. I'm thinking about like capitalism and how capitalism teaches us that like you're only worthy when you're producing an output. Like you're putting something out. You're working a job where you're making money, or you're mothering and you're taking care of a child or caregiving. And like that's valuable. Yeah. But it's not your whole worth, and that's not what you were designed and put on this earth to do. You deserve care. just as much as all of these other people do. And you are going to burn yourself out, sis, and not be able to fly to New York because you're going to be sick. Like, you're not going to be able to attend book club because you're going to be burnt out and you haven't been able to read the book. Like, you don't have nothing to say.
You're spark notes in and you can't even do anything
You
for
can't
it.
do that.
Yeah.
So I think that it has a lot to do with these preconceived social norms about like specifically for women about like you need to be caring for other people, and it gets positively reinforced. I mean, even as children, we're given dolls and baby dolls, and like we're and somebody's going to say, "Oh, you make such a good mommy. Look, you're taking care of that baby," and you know, we're given kitchens to cook food for things for people, and so it's really driven into us. I mean, the social scripts we're given, especially from our generation of Disney movies and stuff, it was all about a man or taking care of somebody. Snow White was taking care of them dwarves. Like those were the only social scripts we were given. Thankfully, Disney has learned, and there's a bunch of millennials working there now that are changing the script, and it's far more about family trauma, and it's making all of us watching cry. But I think that we're given so many social scripts and so much positive reinforcement of being a caregiver, being a caretaker, and not given alternative scripts of like taking care of yourself or doing a job that has nothing to do with caretaking and that being valuable.
Yeah. The self-care option is so important too. I feel like women especially are like, especially moms, even I think you see a lot of the time too, they're like, okay, a couple hours to myself to do things. And there's so much guilt of like, okay, I need to be doing this. I need to be doing this. Doing laundry here. And yes, don't even get me started on media and how that you look back on some of the old shows that we used to watch.
Oh my gosh.
And
Cringe.
old movies that you used to watch. And you're like, this is so fucked up in the way that they paint women and being these like sources of having to lead and provide for everyone else except for themselves. Insane too. And that kind of brings me to like other societal standards that we may see, and just this idea of like hustle culture. You're always on the go, and your success is placed into how much you're working and long hours, and yes, working in maybe a traditional job sense, but also in your like day-to-day life. And people feel like they need 9 to 10 hobbies after work and happy hours and all of these things.
And an hour-long skincare routine. And like, that is not self-care if I have to spend an hour on my skin. Like, I need to do other things.
So what are your thoughts maybe about, productivity guilt too, and like hustle culture and just what society says of people needing to be on the go
all the time,
every single second of the day?
Oh, I have so much to say. Where do I start?
Oh my gosh.
I do want to credit a lot of my thoughts to the Nap Ministry by Trisha. Oh, I'm blanking on her last name. I'm so sorry, Trisha. But a lot of these ideas, I mean, the idea that rest is revolutionary has changed my whole mind, because I love acting out of spite and out of like activism. And I think that like hustle culture is deeply rooted in colonial capitalistic ideas, and we know that those keep you burnt out. And those keep you in this rat race of spinning the wheels and staying exactly where you are. You think that you're hustling to get to this other place. And I'm not saying that we don't need to work hard and we don't need to challenge ourselves by any means, but it needs to be balanced with, am I fueling myself, my soul, not just your body, your soul, fueling your soul, so you can have that forward momentum. And that forward momentum and that path, does it look like what I want it to look like? Or does it look like this script that's been laid out for me as the socially acceptable way to achieve? To, it might mean you don't make it to 6 figures, but you're happy.
Yes.
But you're happy and you're healthy and you're not like chronically burnt out and getting autoimmune diseases, and you have community and all of that. So I think hustle culture for me is seeped in. It's like this perfectionism, and then perfectionism is rooted in capitalism, and it's all about like, let's push you to work as hard as you can and make as most money so you can stay right where you are and keep doing that.
Because there's always going to be someone who's like making those moves for you. Still is always going to be above you in that
there's going to be
too.
someone more privileged than you that got an easier shot to get to that place, and they feel like they worked real hard for it, when honey, you didn't. That was privilege.
You just got that as soon as you were born. In some
there
cases.
Are people in the bottom in the bottom socioeconomic statuses of our country, let alone the world, that are working billion times harder than the billionaires, right? So I think that it's this like false American dream story that we're sold, that if you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you hustle and you work hard and you do everything and you're not lazy and all of that, that you'll be successful. That is not true. That is not true. It doesn't mean that you can't overcome your circumstances. It doesn't mean that just because you don't have certain privileges, you're not going to be successful in the way that our society expects us to. But I think we need to decenter that
100%.
and center more like holistic health, like your body, mind, and spirit feeling like it's in a good place. And if you're also making a good living on top of that, then great. And if the people around you are happy with the support that you're giving them, then great. But those shouldn't be the measures of success that we hold ourselves to.
No, absolutely not. Decentering that is so important. And I love that you said like mind, body, and spirit, because a lot of the time when people think of rest, and I love when you're like, rest is revolutionary, they're thinking physically sitting down and sleep. But you're right. It is so many other aspects of that. If that is someone calling you every single day and you're like, I love this person, I feel like physically like up to it, but mentally I need just a break from this, and giving yourself in that way or whatever that looks like, you really do have to look at all of those different sectors to be able to rest in that sense. I think that's so important too. I wanted to ask you if you could try to explain the difference between being busy and then being productive. I feel like people always think they're the same thing, but I saw this really funny TikTok the other day that this person mentioned busy people are always going to tell someone how busy they are and how much they're doing.
Yes.
And then productive people will always allow the results to show all of the shit that they did. Like they don't have to speak. They're just allowing all the work that they did to speak for itself.
Yeah.
Can you just try to describe the difference between the two? Because I think people feel like being busy is being productive, but they might be doing 10 things. And I'm like, you actually could have gotten those 10 things done in 2 steps.
That part.
But you're just going for the reasons we just mentioned, maybe societal standards or maybe just personality traits if they're an overachiever, whatever that looks like. I'm interested if you could break that down of how those two might be different too.
Yeah. As you were talking, what was coming up for me was sustainable versus unsustainable.
Oh, yeah.
Busy is not sustainable. Sometimes we have to be busy. So, you know, we got to be busy.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of things to do, despite historically and ancestrally, this is supposed to be a time of slowing down and going inward and calming down. But yeah, sometimes you have to be busy, and that's unavoidable, but it's not sustainable. It needs to be seen as like, I have to be busy for this short period of time, and then I'm going to have this aftercare plan.
Yeah.
Productivity, I think, is sustainable. It is about being really intentional about what your goal is. Like, what am I working towards? What do I want? What does that look like, feel like, taste like, smell like? Getting really clear about that. And then setting up sustainable goals with support. Like, how am I on my worst day still gonna meet this goal and be proud of myself? So it's realistic goals. So like maybe your idea of productivity is making sure, I want to kind of take like the idea of like work out of it and like talk about like wellness, right? So like you're wanting to move your body and like feel really strong. Okay. That you picture what that looks like, smells like, all of that things,
all the senses,
all the sensory things. And then you set yourself up with like, okay, even on my worst day, I think I could get out of bed for like 2 minutes and like crazy dance to like my favorite song or something. And then you're like, okay, my best case scenario is I'm going to go for a walk and like do yoga or like go take a class or something. And so you have these options that are sustainable no matter what your body feels like, no matter what your mind feels like. So I think that's the true difference. And productivity, I'm thinking too about how busyness isn't really focused on an outcome. It's just doing for doing's sake.
That's actually very true.
To kind of like just do and be busy. And I feel like a lot of times busyness is a way of avoiding sitting with the discomfort.
Ooh, I was going to ask you about that. And why people, do you feel like a lot of the time, because I already feel like I kind of know the answer to this based on my own personal experiences, but you as a therapist, do you feel like a lot of people just try to distract themselves so they don't have to sit with those negative emotions that come up for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think there's I'm sure there's more than 2 camps, but the simplified version is there's 2 camps. There's like overthinkers where I'm like, yeah, honey, you need to distract yourself. You can't be thinking your thoughts all the time.
Go watch a TV show, please.
Like please go do something that you get out of your head and into your body, or you're just dissociating. Like, that's good for you. Please do that, honey. And then the people that are avoiders and that like don't want to confront what they're feeling or thinking, those are the people I challenge. It's to sit with. You know, it seems like you need to pull back a little bit. You need to have some moments of quiet where you really just sit with yourself. And, you know, whether that be in mindfulness or whether that be in like, sometimes it can be helpful in like creative outlets or what have you, to kind of really sit with yourself and process your feelings, or movement to process your feelings that way while you're working out. Think of all the things that are stressing you out. Let them come up and then move them through your body as you're moving your body. So I think it's one of those things where I don't want to give advice, because there are overthinkers where I'm like, honey, you can't feel everything that you're feeling all the time. Lion King. Okay, please, immediately. Go check out for a little bit. Go watch Real Housewives. Like, it's fine. But then there are people that absolutely just haven't been given the tools to know what to do with those feelings or those thoughts. And I think that's where busyness does come in. Or, they just don't. I think it has to do with not feeling capable and confident in what to do when the feelings come up, because then it just overwhelms you and you start to spiral when you could be resourced. And that's where therapy or support groups or coaches are a beautiful way to be really help you get to know your triggers and how to work through those.
100%. I love that so much. I want to talk about family dynamics within that, because I feel like a lot of the time with people who may struggle with sitting in those times where emotions are coming up, the family dynamics that may have come from them being raised in a certain environment where their families were maybe not communicating about their emotions, then kind of tied that too. I want to talk about family dynamics with productivity guilt, because I was talking to a friend the other day that was saying they got really triggered when someone made a comment insinuating that they were lazy. And the comment really wasn't, and in my opinion, I was like, okay, why did you feel that way? And they described it, and he was like, honestly, I feel like I got really triggered because my parents are the type of people, if I was playing video games in my place all day, they'd be like, you're so freaking lazy. But he's like, I'm an introvert. This is how I recharge. This makes me feel good. So what may have been some signs of things of growing up in a certain household where someone might feel super guilty that they're being lazy for taking that time too? I'm always interested to hear about family dynamics, because I think about my childhood growing up. My parents now are very chill, I think, in the sense where we're home for Christmas. They're like, sleeping as late as you want, whatever. But growing up, they're like, you're up Saturday morning, you're doing chores, you're not watching TV all day. Like, they did not play. In a good sense, like, I do think it's important for kids to like go outside and be active and have responsibilities like chores, but sometimes I'm like, y'all just don't want to even see us sleeping. And I need this sleep right now. You know
sometimes
what I mean?
I think parents are resentful of their kids. They're like, I can't do that. You can't do that.
I can't sleep past 7:30, so you're up too. Like, well, I can't. So.
I think that and it really, I think it's a cultural thing too. It depends on your cultural heritage. And how that your parents were parented. It's generational for sure stuff.
Definitely.
But one thing I notice a lot is like, number one, parents who feel that they weren't resourced to become parents. Maybe it wasn't their choice, or maybe they felt like they had to go down the societal script of you get married, you have kids, but they didn't really question. Do I want this? Am I capable of doing this? Have I worked through my own stuff? Right. So that's a pretty general, broad thing that I notice. And then that triggering, I mean, parenthood, as a parent, I can confidently say parenthood is a triggering experience, because you have to confront the way that you were raised. You have to, and you have to go, am I going to do the same, or am I going to deviate? Like,
and you say you might do one thing, but then you're doing the thing that you said you wouldn't do.
100%. You become a hypocrite very easily. And so I think without being a conscious parent and being like, oh, this thing from my childhood is coming up and I'm projecting it onto my kid, and like, how can I repair from that? How can I do something different? How can I be responsive to their needs? That a lot of resentment comes up, a lot of projection of your own insecurities as a parent can get projected onto them. And it's scary as a parent to think I might be raising a kid who's going to get launched out of the nest and isn't going to be successful, isn't going to feel like independent, isn't going to be able to fend for themselves. And really, the ideal parenting when it comes to productivity is teaching children to have a balance between
Love that.
rest and productivity.
Yeah.
Like and really following, I think a lot of kids these days are involved in way too many extracurricular activities, and this idea that, which again, this is going to be the theme. Capitalism. Like capitalism says you have to be successful, you have to do well in school, you have to go to college in order to get a good job, and in order to do all of those things you have to have a good application, and on that application you need to be in beta club, and you need to be a star athlete, and you need to be in all of the honors classes, and so the expectations are way too high. And parents are either, and I mean, obviously there's some phenomenal parents out there who walk the balance really well, but it's like either parents are like doing it all for them and coddling them and not giving them the grit and resilience to know how to find the balance on their own. Or they're just being like, suck it up, you got to do it, you know? And so I think I think capitalism puts a lot of pressure on parents to make sure that they're raising kids that fit into this system and are successful and are ignoring, oh my gosh, I've got to teach them how to take care of themselves.
Like this other side of that.
Yeah.
I love the idea of the balance, because you really do see a lot of parents on totally opposite sides. It's like, go, always in things, extracurricular sports, or like, oh, you're good, do your thing. They have no structure, which I think can be really concerning in some places. I was going to ask you too, how can someone then hold themselves accountable? When can you tell the difference between someone who is on their couch 24/7, really not doing much, really not, it's good to rest, but maybe to the point where it's not necessarily healthy, that's
or it might be like
depression or something like that, versus someone who is, just taking their time for rest and taking those moments. How can you tell the difference between someone who's being lazy versus someone who's like just feeling a little bit of productivity guilt between the two things,
That's such a good question. And I've struggled that with on my own, actually. Like, this is something that I've worked through recently as someone who struggles with depression, and I have chronic migraine. So there are days where like I physically can't leave the couch and stuff like that. Right.
Yeah.
But then it sometimes, like, a migraine flare will like make me feel depressed, and then I get stuck there. Even when the pain passes, like, I get scared to move because like that might trigger another thing. So like
100%.
if you're listening right now and you struggle with this, I get it. It is so hard to tease apart the difference. And what I've found is that sometimes rest should feel restorative. You should feel like you have, and sometimes, like, if you're chronically burnt out, it's going to take a lot of rest to get you to a place where you feel restored. So like, this is where it does get tricky, and where working with a professional would be super helpful to figure out these individual needs of yours. So you should feel restored, and you should feel excited after resting to get back into the groove of things.
Love that.
And that rest doesn't always have to, you mentioned this earlier, doesn't always have to mean vegging out on the couch. I've discovered pottery recently.
Oh, wait, fun. I've been wanting to get into that.
I love it. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10, especially if you're someone who struggles with perfectionism. Because you're going to make mistakes, especially if you're learning it. And it's a really forgiving medium, but I'm able to really kind of like just chill and turn off my brain and really get into the sensory experience. And I leave there feeling filled up. Like, I really feel filled up. Like, okay, I can go handle anything because I just have my hands in clay for the morning. And the way my class is structured, I do like open studio on Monday, and then end on Fridays I have my class. So it's like my bookend to my week. Love it. So there are things like that. But then, like, depression tricks you into thinking that, like, you getting up off that couch or out of your bed and moving your body or making a snack or maybe doing some dishes isn't going to help. Like, you're just going to feel like crap anyway. So you might as well not do it.
So you should just keep laying in bed, because you're going to feel way better if you're staying there than actually doing something for yourself.
So regardless if you're dealing with productivity guilt, or you're like depressed, or you're just resting, ask yourself, how much more of this do I need in order to feel restored? And if you don't know, that's okay. Put a timer on your phone or something like that. Let yourself veg out and chill, or wait, set a goal for yourself of like, after this episode ends, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And then one thing that I learned from a TikTok therapist or something like that is give yourself a countdown.
Yeah.
Like after the show's ends, be like, okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and then get up and then be like, okay, I'm moving my feet. I'm walking towards the fridge. Like talking yourself through it really helps. Sometimes you've got to be your own coach or your own therapist or your, and that's a plug for my friend Jake Ryan's book. He has a book called,
Come on, Jake Ryan.
Yeah, Jake Ryan he has a book called Be Your Own Therapist. It's fantastic. And you would think a therapist would not be encouraging people to be their own therapist, but we want you to be independent. We want you to be like to be autonomous and get to make your own decisions and work through those things. So you've got to coach yourself out of it. Sometimes you got to be like, I wonder what it would feel like for me to like even roll out of bed onto the floor and do some stretches and see what that feels like. And then maybe I wonder what it would feel like to like hop in the shower or the bath. I wonder. That can be really helpful too, especially if you struggle, if you're neurodivergent and you struggle with demand avoidance, where even things you want to do, you just feel stuck. Like,
wait, what is demand avoidance? I'm not sure.
So demand avoidance is it's a symptom of that. A lot of people who are autistic or ADHD or on the spectrum, neurodivergent of some sort, and even people with like trauma, PTSD can experience it, where there can be something you want to do, but it feels like a demand, and your body, your brain are just like, nope, we cannot do it.
Got it. Okay.
It could be something you enjoy and it's just like, can't do it. Gotta avoid it. And so adding this curiosity of like, I wonder what it would feel like, or what if we did this, and like making it a question can feel less like a demand and more of an invitation. Like you're like asking yourself for consent almost. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that can be really helpful because maybe sometimes productivity guilt comes from demand avoidance and the demand is to rest.
Yeah. And
like,
then you're like,
and you got to be like, what would it feel like if I sat with like a little cute little eye mask on my eye and just rested for a minute, or took a nice long shower, or read some romantasy that like is stupid and it's not going to contribute to my intellect, but like feels really nice. I'm not talking from personal experience or anything.
That's a book in mind that you read last night.
My fairy smut. I love it.
Smut books, I can't. No, and you gave so many, I was going to ask you too, you gave so many good examples of little things that people can do just to take that time for themselves. You mentioned your pottery class. You said you went on Mondays and Fridays. I was going to ask you, do you feel like a lot more people have productivity guilt on the weekends versus during the week, especially if they have a traditional 9 to 5, because even if you're not doing anything after work, you're like, okay, I worked 70% of the day. I can sit and feel fine. But on the weekends, if I'm sitting and not really doing much, I feel like that's where a lot of mine comes in. If I don't have plans or like doing something for unlicensed or doing something related to work on Saturday or Sunday, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing?
It feels paralyzing.
It feels paralyzing. I get actual anxiety from it. Do you feel like a lot of people may struggle more with weekend productivity guilt versus during the week?
Yeah,
I've always thought of that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think it's because it's not structured.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it might be helpful for you to create structure, to like create maybe like a plan for yourself for if you have days where you don't have any commitments, what you would want your day to look like. And like hold yourself accountable, even if and again, I think ideally we shouldn't have to have a plan. We could just like intuitively go with what our body likes. But if you're feeling locked down and paralyzed, make a list, make a plan, make it cute and aesthetic.
I love a list.
Yeah. Make a list and think about what would bring me joy. Like what would make me feel at ease.
Yeah.
What do I feel like would be restorative? And make a list and be like, okay, which one feels most accessible right now? Which one feels most accessible? Maybe laying on my floor and having some floor time.
Yeah.
Maybe that's most accessible, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe putting on a yoga YouTube video and doing some yoga, or maybe painting my nails, or, you know, just make a list of things and then ask yourself what feels most accessible. So I think giving yourself some structure can help. Or researching different things in your community that could be restorative. By the way, a form of yoga that is really restorative is called yoga nidra. It literally translates to yoga sleep.
Yoga sleep. Oh my God.
I'm
okay.
here
You
for
are
it.
asleep. So I'm
You're
like
like,
on
sign me
board.
up.
Yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah.
I love a good nap.
If you go to one of these classes, they have all of the like pillows and bolsters and things like that. And you get to take as many as you want. And you literally stay in like, there's like three stretches or positions. You'll do the poses. You'll do for the entire class for an hour class.
Kind of class.
So you like lay on your side.
Oh, hell yeah.
And then eventually you move into child's pose. And then you into Shavasana.
Wait, okay. Send me this information immediately. During yoga, I'm like winded after one thing, but I love the parts where we're just like breathing and lying. So
it's like
this sounds right up
Shavasana the whole time.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my favorite.
Yoga Nidra.
It's my favorite. Yes.
Okay,
Yoga
got
Nidra. There's online ones, even if you don't have a studio near you who has Yoga Nidra.
Yeah.
If you're in Atlanta, there's one on every corner that's going to probably offer it. But it's such a beautiful practice.
Okay. I'm signing up for that. That is so good. And I love
hot yoga. Let's do Yoga Nidra.
Yeah, let's do that. Right up my alley. And I love the idea of making a list. And I noticed you kept saying things that, you know, work for you and are good for you. Because I think a lot of the time with productivity guilt, people begin to feel that shame when they're comparing themselves to other people too. Yeah. Can you name a time where you maybe you were chilling, doing your thing, having a good rest day, and then you scrolled on Instagram, TikTok, something, and you saw a friend, family member just busy on the go, traveling, doing all the things. Can you name a specific time where you compared yourself to someone in that way, and just obviously describing the importance of not doing that for people? Because I think a lot of the time the comparison is when people begin to feel a lot of that shame.
And honestly, maybe I could say recently that like maybe I'm rested and chilling and watching other professionals that I'm connected with, like doing the courses and doing the things, and me going like, oh, I've not got a lot of that going on. Yeah. But then I always get curious and I go, okay, why does that feel feel threatening to me right now?
Love that.
Like where is that coming from? Yeah. And sometimes it's coming from a super valid place of like, I just want to reach more people and I just want to help more people and I want like to feel really good about the work that I'm doing, and 99.9% of the time I do. But yeah, I think that comparison traps, I also go back to like, I'm a parent and this person isn't. So like I have a whole human I'm trying to raise and this person has that time more accessible to them. Such a good point. Yes. You know, or like they don't struggle with chronic migraine and I do. And so therefore I need more rest. So I think comparison's really tricky because everything makes sense in context. Yeah. So if you look at your context versus the person you're comparing to, and most of the time we don't know their full context.
So true. You don't know their story.
So sometimes it's helpful for me to make up a story sometimes about somebody else's context and like be like, I know this isn't true, but what if like they're taking really good care of themselves and they rested during the weekend and now during the week and like our schedules are different. So I think just recognizing that like everybody's context is different and comparing yourself to someone else is just not helpful. Yes. Not accurate, not helpful. You're on your own journey. If you get inspired, that's great. You can ask yourself, like, how can I apply this to my context so it fits my context? Yeah. But we can't copy and paste other people's lives onto ours.
No, because we will be in this like never-ending cycle of doing that, especially when it comes to this topic today.
Your life.
Yeah. I love that. You're amazing.
You're amazing,
I have one more question
Jill.
for you.
Hey, as a professional question asker, you're really good. Thank you. You're really good.
And you're so validating too. I love some words of affirmation. My last question for you kind of stems to what we were talking about in the beginning of the episode and how you have these different like mindfulness techniques to help people change the narratives of their story. So how can someone go from being, I am lazy, I am laying around being a lazy piece of shit all day, to my body needed rest. I'm glad I'm giving my body rest. How can people begin to implement and begin to change that narrative about themselves when it comes to productivity guilt on the day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Okay, some radical acceptance, I think, is the thing. Just radically accepting where you are and being like, it's okay to be right here where I am. It might not feel great. Yeah. But it's okay that I'm learning. I love affirmations, but I heard someone else use the word ask-formations.
Ask-formations,
so like, for reframing them as a question of like, what if I'm starting to believe I'm worthy of rest?
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. What if I'm learning how to truly rest? What if I'm on my way to being the most self-supported I've ever been in my life? You know? Yeah. What if taking this nap right now is the best way I can love myself? And I think that resonates sometimes more than like true affirmations of like, I am worthy and my best is good enough. And sometimes you like say those things to your head and there's a version of you going, that's some bullshit.
Yeah, you
like,
don't believe
I don't believe that.
Still.
Yeah. So like saying I'm starting to believe I'm worthy of rest. Feels more accessible, resonates better. I also really love repeating to myself, like, even though I feel unworthy right now, I truly accept myself.
Damn.
You know?
Yeah.
Even if you don't really believe that, like, and even though I feel this way right now and I love myself or I accept myself is a super powerful thing for your body to listen in on. That it's okay, because I don't like the toxic positivity of like pushing all the negative feelings away.
No.
Pushing those to the side. Those deserve to be seen. They deserve to be felt.
We literally had an episode about that. Toxic positivity earlier. Yes.
Ew,
100%.
hate it. Hate toxic positivity.
Awful.
I love being positive. I love looking on the bright side. I love looking for the silver lining, but it can feel so damn invalidating sometimes. So I think that's a big part of it. I think also surrounding yourself with content, books, podcasts that are talking about these things can be super helpful. Like sometimes you really need to immerse yourself in it. So you're giving your brain the narratives, the structure, the concepts to be like, okay, other people are doing this. You have the
information.
Yeah. And other people are doing this and they're thriving and it's okay for me to too. Like if you're one of those people, you kind of need some external validation in order to do that. Give it to yourself by reading the books, watching the TikToks, listening to this podcast episode.
Hell yeah. Oh my God. Great advice. I'm like taking this for myself too. Before we end, I know you said you have like a meditation technique or something that we can do together, which is going to be so awesome for you guys. We've literally never done anything like this.
I love it.
I'm so pumped, but I'm just like excited for people to do it. And as you're listening or watching this on YouTube too, you guys can kind of do it too for the next time that you're feeling any sort of shame or guilt towards, you know, being unproductive, quotation marks, because you're taking time to rest. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I recognize some people may be listening in their car or while you're on the move. So no, you can pause this and come back to it later if you'd like, or you can just kind of listen and soak it in. You don't have to be sitting in a cross-legged position. You can, you know, if you're home, you can lay down, just get comfortable, feel supported wherever you are, and gently close your eyes if you feel safe to do so. I invite you to take a deep breath in through your nose and release it slowly through your mouth. Let's take 2 more breaths like that if it feels okay with you. In and out. With each breath, allow yourself to arrive fully in this moment, leaving behind the worries of the day. Now I invite you to bring your attention to your body. Notice where there's any tension or tightness. Without judgment, just simply observe. Starting at the top of your head, soften your forehead, unclench your jaw, let your shoulders drop. Feel your body gently relaxing. Allow your breath to flow naturally, steady and grounding. Now, turn your attention inward and gently ask yourself, what am I holding on to right now? Maybe it's a to-do list that feels endless, or a voice telling you you're not doing enough. Whatever comes up, allow it to rise without trying to push it away. Give yourself permission to simply notice. Now imagine holding these feelings of guilt or pressure in your hands. Notice how they feel. Heavy, maybe even sticky. Now imagine placing them down beside you. They don't have to disappear, but for now, you don't have to carry them. You might like to visualize a soft golden light surrounding these feelings, offering compassion and kindness. And as you continue to breathe, bring your awareness to your heart space. In this moment, remind yourself, my worth is not defined by what I produce. Repeat silently or aloud, I am enough, exactly as I am. Let these words sink in, gently soothing any resistance. Now picture yourself in a natural setting, a quiet forest, a soft meadow, or even by the ocean. Notice how everything in this space is in balance. Trees grow and rest, flowers bloom and fade, waves rise and fall. Productivity is a cycle, not a measure of worth. You too are allowed to rest, to pause, to simply be. When you're ready, slowly return to the room. You may wiggle your fingers and toes, bringing gentle movement back into your body. And take a moment to thank yourself for showing up for this practice today. When you're ready, open your eyes. Know that you carry this compassion and balance with you as you move throughout your day.
That was so beautiful.
I
literally was like, oh my God, I'm feeling it. Literally, when you said the hands thing, I like actually felt it in my hands.
Yeah.
Yes.
The brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not, so let's work with that.
Oh my gosh. Also, your voice is so soothing.
Thank you.
You need to like record and have like a whole like meditation series or something.
I might
that was
just
so
do
dope.
that.
Actually. Shae, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I did. I'm literally about to like listen to this when I go home again and do it again. But you're amazing.
You're amazing.
Let the people know, where can they find you? Share with Shae. Let them know all of your social media presence if they want to work with you in Atlanta too, if you're taking new clients.
Yeah.
Let the people know everything you're working on right now.
You can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Share with Shae, and my name is spelled SHAE. So you can find me there. I'm posting silly, helpful, funny, chaotic content. And if you want to work with me as your therapist, I'm licensed both in Georgia and Florida. So if you're in Florida or Georgia, hit me up at my website, sharewithshae.com. We can do a free 15-minute consultation, see if we'll be a good fit. And I'm a coach, so I can help folks worldwide. If you're wanting to work on productivity guilt, if you're wanting to work on self-love stuff, if you're wanting to work on generational trauma healing, we can do all sorts of stuff. So just hit me up and we'll see if we can work together.
I love it. You guys better hit her up. I'm not kidding. Thank you so much for being here today. This was so fun. I love just having guests who like, no, I know. Genuinely, we were talking before, and I always get so excited about guests that I know the energy is just going to be like amazing. So thank you for being who you are today and making it feel so natural and great too.
Thank you.
I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you enjoyed listening into all the advice. Of course, if you guys in the meantime want to write into the advice form, if you literally have questions, need advice on anything that you're dealing with, anything that you want to vent about in your life, head to that advice form on my Instagram or my website, www.unlicenssedpodcast.com. Check out all video content on TikTok and Instagram at Unlicensed Advice. And as always, guys, I love you.